All right. Well, I guess I'm introducing today, which is unusual and exciting. Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Black, and welcome to Conversations on Zoom. I certainly need to. My favorite part of this is always when Geraldine says this is like magic, when we all come together from every part of the world in different time zones, and we get to come together once a week. So this is so wonderful. And this time, our very own Geraldine will be leading the session, which is why I'm introducing. So with that, from Geraldine Auerbach, from 1983, Geraldine began discovering and celebrating Jewish music. From 1984 to 2000, she ran a pioneering biennial month-long Jewish music festival, which included new commissions and many UK premieres performed by local and international artists. Over those years, and since then, with mini festivals, more than 80,000 people attended 675 concerts and recitals organized by Geraldine and her teams. Focused mainly in London, there were also many regional events introducing British audiences to many genres of Jewish music. Several performance groups were established to perform different aspects of Jewish music. All the festival and all of this material has been digitized and is available through the Jewish Music Institute. And with our guest today, Jeffrey Fisher, economist come music producer Jeffrey Fisher entered the world of Jewish music actively only 4 years ago with a mission to bring Jewish music to the forefront of the stage. All his activity takes place under the auspices of the nonprofit organization Spectacular World of Jewish Music, SWJM, that he established in February 2018. SWJM has staged 4 major events in Jerusalem, incorporating 25 separate concerts. Up to now, the most recent event, a major Hanukkah Jewish music festival last November through December, partnered by the Jerusalem municipality. SWJM hopes to take its Jewish music messages to other cities in Israel in the future and also possibly to abroad. On SWJM's drawing board are several ambitious projects for 2022 and beyond, one with several international involvement. SWJM's singular approach to staging Jewish music is called the multi-genre approach, with SWJM events presenting Jewish music to audiences in several different genres. The rationalization of the approach is to enhance audiences, either Jewish or non-Jewish, appreciation of the rich musical heritage of the Jewish people. We are very lucky to have both of us this morning or evening or afternoon. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Laurie, for such a lovely introduction. And it's very strange to be on the other end of the whatever it is today. And I'm just thrilled to be doing this cause with Jeffrey, because here is somebody who is taking further something that I started doing a long time ago. And it's very exciting for us to hear what Jeffrey's doing. So I made a little PowerPoint. I'm going to start by sharing my screen, if I can, having sort of helped everybody else to do it. Let's see if I can do it myself. Is that a screen that you can see? Hopefully. Yes. And I'm going to go from the beginning, because then it gets a bit bigger. So here we are, and we're going to talk to you together. It's a real pleasure. So how are we going to do it? We're going to say, why did we do it? You know, what's the idea to present Jewish music on the stage? When did we start doing it? What made us carry on, and what followed? And then I'll talk about that, and then Jeffrey will talk about that, and then we'll come back to you and tell you what have been the most joyous experiences and what we think perhaps is the lasting benefit. So I'm going to start with, if I can make it work, a friend to talk about it.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us on this really very, very special occasion, celebrating the 25th anniversary of one of the really, really great institutions in Anglo-Jewry, an institution which, to be honest with you, has not always had the prominence or the support that it so richly deserves. but I think one of which we can be hugely proud. I know there are many of you, all of you perhaps, who in one way or another have helped the Jewish Music Institute, but I think it would be listening not to single out the driving force who is the reason any of us are involved in any shape whatsoever, and that's Geraldine Albach. Geraldine, friends, what Geraldine and the Institute have done is truly extraordinary, and you'll be getting a little magazine this evening explaining some of the achievements. But when I saw them outlined together, I could really hardly believe the sheer extent of it. 675 concerts during those years. 80,000 people have attended. 10 pioneering Jewish music festivals. The annual South Bank Jewish Culture Days, and some real landmark moments. Kaddish for Terezin in Canterbury Cathedral, Hans Bloch's Sacred Service, and many others. And more recently, Simcha on the Square and Klezmer in the Park. Extraordinary and really lovely, joyous occasions, open to everyone. And I think when you offer people in general, not just the Jewish community, but anyone who's passing by, you say, come and join in our music and food. I think music, food, and stories, you can bring peace to the whole universe just doing that. And of course, many other things like the Millennium Awards, like the Cancers Convention, like the Jewish Music Library, and of course the lectureship in Jewish music now at SOAS, and we were so honored to have you here, and Professor
Abigail, where's Abby? Yeah, gotcha.
Thank you for creating it. Thank you for filling it so beautifully, and of course the great event to celebrate this quarter centenary, the forthcoming Klez Fest. You are taking klezmer around the country, am I right?
Yeah, we're not going to wait for you to come to us.
Yeah.
We're coming to you.
So you have been warned. Klezmer coming to a venue near you soon. And what a joyous thing klezmer is. And, it's just tremendous. Look, friends, this is a great achievement. And I really believe that it deserves all our support. Let me just share with you some very personal thoughts about this. To me, music is the most spiritual form of expression that exists, and was absolutely central to Jewish spirituality. The Levites in the temple served God through music. And if my memory serves me correctly, there once was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But then you don't care for music, do you? Sorry, the reference, I don't know what that is, but Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. We serve God with music. The Israelites at the Red Sea. Did you notice every time the Israelites?
Okay, well, I'm really grateful to someone like him. Now I've got to find a way to get back to my PowerPoint, which I might be able to do, I might not. So I'll share it again. So the key thing that he said, I think, was that it didn't always get the prominence and the value that it needed. And this is the thing about Jewish music and about Jews. They can take it or leave it somehow. It's very important, I think, to get music beyond the Jewish community, to make it available to all. Oh, so I'm still now on this thing. So, Laurie, help. Okay, so there we are. So it's why did I do it? When I started, it was through B'nai B'rith that wanted to do a Jewish music festival. They wanted, it was at a time when Israel had just marched into Lebanon, the first Lebanon war. It was a time that was quite fraught, and every time you turn on the radio, there was something about armies and battles. And we felt that there was more to Judaism, that you had to show a different side of Jews from their ancient history to where they've landed up. And how did we decide what Jewish music was? You know, this is the eternal problem. What is Jewish music? We didn't worry about trying to define it. We just took that anything that was written or used for Jewish purposes, any music written or used for Jewish purposes, for us was Jewish music. It didn't have to be written by a Jew or performed by a Jew. It had to have a Jewish intention. And we worked with groups who were dedicated to presenting Jewish music, like established choirs and ensembles. And we collaborated with many institutions and embassies and people who wanted to support Jewish music. It opened up, you know, taking Jewish music out of the synagogue and out of the communal hall into the public. And so how do you do it? We had a whole group of people sitting around the table with B'nai B'rith saying, yes, well, I can have a program committee, we can have a sponsorship committee, we can have a publicity committee. And basically it went round and round for several months until they had to take the decision and say, well, we haven't got any money, we'll have to give up the halls. And that's when I said, if you give up those halls, you will never have a Jewish music festival. Give me 3 weeks. And that's how I got involved in Jewish music. You know, I was quite innocent of it before that, but I knew a lot of people who did know about Jewish music. So I can see that the spelling's not too good, but before long, you know, the festival that was going to be 10 days had to jump a week earlier because somebody else wanted to do something on the Sunday before, and then somebody wanted to do something on the Sunday afterwards. So before we knew it, it was a month-long festival. It had 50 or more events, and they were all sorts of things, from walks, talks, lectures. We even put synagogue services into the festival so that each synagogue could show their own particular brand of music. And we decided that each festival would have a book of its own, because sometimes this can be so ephemeral. It comes and it goes. But in every festival, you can see we started with small books, A5, and we landed up with much bigger ones. But every artist, every concert, every venue, every song lyric, every artist biography were all together in a book. And these books exist. And I'm delighted to say the books actually have been digitized, and they are on the Jewish Music Institute website under their archives. So you can actually page through all these books are there. So, okay, so there we are, we made a festival. We still didn't get a lot of money, but we had enough. And you know, I'm not one that believes you've got to sit there and wait for money to pile up on the table. If you want to do something and it's good, somebody will support it, and somebody will help sell the tickets, and somebody will offer a venue, and so it can develop. So the question was, what made you continue, having done it? I felt that Jewish music seemed to be like a red hot cable running from the Bible to infinity. And people wanted to be warmed by it. And I kind of felt obliged to present it to them in whatever way I could for the rest of my life, I suppose you could say. So first thing we did was we made some recordings from our festivals. This one called Viennese Synagogue Music in the Age of Schubert was about Solomon Zolzer. We did a concert to celebrate his 100th anniversary. And with the Zemel Choir and Lawrence Fine, Brian Kesselman, Robert Brody. This was the other record. And then having made the recordings, you realize how do you distribute them? There isn't a distributor. So I sat down and made a piece of paper and I said, Jewish music distribution. And then we collected some more records that belonged to other people at broadcast. And suddenly we were distributing these to libraries, to individuals in Gloucestershire or in Scotland, Sheffield, and to shops. And so we started disseminating Jewish music. And then we would get interesting people to open the festival. So here is Chris Smith, who was the culture minister at the time, opening it with a chauffeur fanfare, specially written by Malcolm Miller. And the 1998 festival was the 50th anniversary of the State of Israel. So he wrote the fanfare for that. And we always try to get important people to open the festivals. And sometimes, we used all the concert halls. We used the South Bank, which the Queen Elizabeth Hall, the Purcell Room. Sometimes we used them all. We had a whole day where we had 5 events, in the foyer, in the crypt, in this room and that room, and people were running around from one event to the other. But some things I felt needed special venues, needed something different to bring people out. The same way as Jeffrey is saying, you need a twist of something when you've got things sometimes to give a new interest. So somebody brought us a Kaddish for Terezhin, written by Ronald Senator. He'd written it based on poetry of children in Terezhin, to Regenstadt, a concentration camp, and it had a children's choir and adult choir orchestra. So I thought, it'd be wonderful to do it, but it needs a special venue. So I contacted the Council of Christians and Jews, because I thought, this is not a story that just pertains to Jews. This is a story for everybody. And this was quite early on. We're talking 1986 here. So with one thing and another, the Dean of Canterbury was very keen to host it there. They wanted a Holocaust memorial. They didn't want to have a plaque in the garden that the dogs would wee on. They wanted something more spiritual, and they thought this would be wonderful. And we had Rabbi Hugo Grin as the narrator. Hugo was a very wonderful, charismatic, much loved Reform rabbi from West London Synagogue, who himself had been incarcerated in Terezhin. And so Radio London cleared their airwaves that evening and broadcast the whole evening live from Canterbury Cathedral. And I can just tell you one little thing. When everybody comes in and they say, hello, Auntie Rosie, we haven't seen you before, and they're all standing in near their seats and talking and chatting. There's no bell that says the concert's about to begin. So the poor dean was trying to clear his throat to welcome everybody at the time that they were going to start broadcasting. And it was quite a moment of revelation when you realize, actually, next time we do this, we're going to have a fanfare of trumpets to make sure that people know when the event is starting. So once we decided to do a Teresian event in Canterbury, so it grew. And somebody introduced us, David Bloch had introduced us to Edith Krauss in Israel, and Carl Berman, who'd gone back to Prague, who had performed together in the camp. And we brought them both to Canterbury, and they met each other again for the first time in all those years. And we were looking for somewhere to present this little recital. And they said, oh, the King's School's got a recital room. And when we came there, they said, oh, yes, this used to be the Canterbury Synagogue. And it's a beautiful building built in Egyptian style. And there are Edith and Carl doing that. So during the festival, we did many British premieres, bringing music that had never been performed here before. And now you understand this is not easy, because most people like to go to a concert where they can know the music that they're going to hear, or they can at least la 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 on the way out. And a lot of this music is not actually like that. So bringing new music was a challenge. But did you know that Max Bruch wrote an oratorio called Moses? And we did a lot of Salomone Rossi's music, not just his psalms, but other music. We did Mio's Sabbath evening service. We did Joseph Tull's opera, The Garden, and many more. And some were even world premieres, like Ronald Senator's Kaddish for Teresian that I've just told you about. That went on to be performed in New York, to be performed in the Vatican, and to be performed in Teresian itself and in Israel. So it had an auspicious beginning with us. Now, we had many visiting groups from all over. The Yiddish Theatre of Warsaw came and did a series of concerts for us. We brought the Simcha Choir from Minsk, and that had Dmitry Slepovitz with it as a young boy playing the clarinet. We've had him on Koz. He was extraordinary as a child. We had klezmer bands, Maxwell Street from Chicago, the Conservatory Band from Boston. We had the Klezmatics from New York. We had Alhambra, Isabel Gance's Judeo-Spanish ensemble. We brought Giora Feidman to England for the first time. We had Israeli music ensembles, one with David Bloch, and we had the Meitar ensemble. One of my favorites was the Rosh Ha'ayin Kibbutz Mandolin Orchestra. Big mandolins, small mandolins, big children, small children. It was absolutely something special. And we had artists from Argentina, Austria, Belarus, Belgium, Brazil, Holland, Hungary, Lithuania, Middle East, Switzerland. You know, when I look back on it, I'm quite surprised to see all the things that we actually did. And where we didn't have an ensemble, we made one. So we didn't have at one stage a klezmer band in the UK, and we needed a concert. Somebody said, you know, there's a brilliant Russian clarinetist who's just arrived in England. His name's Gregory Schechter, you know, ask him. So we went to Gregory and said, can you make a klezmer band? He said, of course I can. We said, can you do it in 2 months' time? Oh, absolutely. So we had to, that next day, we had to find a name and we had to put it in the festival hall program. Never having seen Gregory play or seen his band, which didn't exist, it was quite nerve-wracking. But when we went to the first rehearsal, it was absolutely stunning. And the interesting thing is that many of these boys who were in this band went on to form their own klezmer bands. So not only did we start one klezmer band, but we started several. This is Stuart Curtis, who had K Groove. We had Aaron Baron Cohen. Phil Alexander, our own Phil, played in Gregory's band at one stage. So it was quite a nursery for doing that. But we also had other people. Sarah Manasseh, who is with the beautiful flowing silver locks, is an Iraqi Jewish scholar and musician. And she brought her friends together, and we needed to make a name. So we called it Rivers of Babylon. And they performed in Trafalgar Square and in various concerts and events for us. So obviously cantorial music is something. This was our take, Jeffrey, on a different type of cantorial concert. The choir at the back was a brilliant choir. It was called the London Choir or something. And it was made up of choristers who had trained in the great cathedrals or universities of Britain. It was not a Jewish choir, but you could just give them music and they could sing it in the most wonderful way. And here was 16 of our best cantors from Britain and Alberta Mizrahi in a concert we called Cantors in Concert. And it wasn't coming up and going down, and we made them all dress up. So it was quite a nice looking choir and concert. And, you know, synagogue music obviously was important to do it. We also had a section that did concerts about music suppressed by the Third Reich. You know, we had a special section that actually dealt with this. So the one thing is, thwarted voices, music suppressed by the Third Reich. We did an opera by the first British stage performance of Machinist Hopkins. And Jeffrey, shall I just mute you while you're coughing? We did these Continental Britain's concerts. This is a Hans Gull, one of the continental people who came to Britain and lived and worked in Scotland. The next generation, we did a lot of work with children in our concerts. Here were 250 children from Jewish schools in a special pageant that Stephen Glass wrote for us and conducted. And as many of you will know, a very charismatic and exceptional children's choir conductor and adult choir conductor. We had classical music concerts. And here is Lady Schulte. She's actually showing us one of George's scores, which he marked in red. So she was showing us, I don't know if you can see it in the bottom corner with the red markings. And here is a group of people in George's studio. Here's his piano. And on this backdrop here, you can't really see it, are all his Grammy Awards. And this is John Tusa, who was the director of the Barbican Center at one stage. Yiddish, we did a lot of Yiddish and Yiddish song and klezmer music. Now this event was a launch of this translation of The King of Lampedusa. Now, I don't know if you can imagine, this was written in 1942 in the midst of the biggest horrors for Jews. And it's a story of a British RAF pilot who almost crash lands his plane on the little Italian island of Lampedusa. And the garrison there run up to him and surrender because they think that he's part of an invading force. And so Harendorf wrote this play about this pilot who then becomes the king of Lampedusa, and that the Jews have their own little homeland. And it's a really funny and amazing piece of work, but very much just absolutely of its time. But we managed to get Heather Valencia to translate it into English so we could all read it. And we had a launch of it. And this is the famous actor, Warren Mitchell, and the famous Yiddish actress, Anna Zelnicka, at that event. And now, free public events. We also brought Jewish music to the public. And here we are at Klezmer in the Park. One of the things we did was we asked the whole audience to bring an instrument, and we had the whole of our Klezfest audience as well. So we had about 80 musicians, and someone like Frank London or Merlin Shepherd would teach them all a piece of klezmer in the middle of the park. And we'd also run dancing there. It was great fun. So we are at Klezmer in the Park. So I'm going to stop there now and stop sharing and invite Jeffrey, who's been doing some amazing things since, a few years only, and look forward to hearing what Jeffrey's been doing. So over to you, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Geraldine. I've been listening to your career and thinking how little I've done up to now, but it's true, I've only been at this for 4 years. How did I get started? I had a 45-year career as an economist, and I knew that it wasn't a question of if I'm going to make a change, but when I'm going to make a change. And I knew that the change, when it would come, would be in the direction of culture, within culture and music. I didn't know at the beginning that I would be involved in Jewish music. And how did that happen? Well, at the beginning of this new period, in order to get into the picture, I did a lot of networking, which I'm pretty good at. And one of the people that I spoke to suddenly threw this down, this glove on the ground, a gauntlet on the ground. He said, are you aware that in Israel, very little Jewish music is played? Maybe you'd like to do something about it. Well, I think of myself as a man of action. And when I heard this kind of question, I said to myself, well, it's worthwhile looking into. So I started looking into it by contacting people who were in the field of Jewish music. And I discovered that there was a lot of confirmation for what the gentleman has said to me. And that's really, it's his fault that I decided to get into the world of Jewish music. I wanted to find something to do. So that's the first assignment of someone who wants to change his career to know a general direction of where he wants to go. But the next assignment, which is even more difficult, is to decide what exactly you're going to do in this career. And I did a little bit of due diligence and came up with the understanding that most Jewish music events in Israel are what I call single genre events. An example is Chazanut is a single genre. Chazanut concert is just Chazanut. The Klezmer festival is just Klezmer. Those are two separate genres. But having called my non-profit organization the Spectacular World of Jewish Music, and I did it for a purpose. It sounds a bit bombastic, but it has a meaning behind it, because I really believe that the world of Jewish music is spectacular and has many genres. I created this concept, which Laurie referred to in his introduction, of the multi-genre event, which means an event that we put on is a series of concerts, generally close together in time. And at each concert, we present a different genre to the public who attends. I use the expression a lot, what ears were you born with? I mean, I was born with Ashkenazi ears, and everybody knows that the ears that he or she is born with tends to pull them in a certain direction as far as music is concerned. But there's no reason why you shouldn't adapt your ears to listen to music that you're less well acquainted with. And among the the concerts that I've done, 25, had it not been for COVID, I probably would have done many more by now. But 2 years of activity was pretty much wiped out. So I've done many Svaldi music concerts, and I'm learning, or I'm having my ears adapt to this music and learning to like it. And I know many people, many groups who play Jewish music. So that's the multi-genre idea, that I create an event. And it's really great fun to do this because there are so many different genres of Jewish music that it's fun just to plan an event, because you can choose from a vast number of genres. And that's up to now, again, as Laurie mentioned, we've done 4 events with 25 concerts. The last one was at Hanukkah. In a minute, I'm going to show you a poster about our events. Why was it, I asked myself the question, why was it that I didn't do it in a more organized fashion, that I jumped straight into the deep waters of bringing Jewish music to the stage? I could have, I count the number of years I still have left until the age of 120, I still have about 41 years, which is quite a long period of time. Maybe I should have gone and studied Jewish music first of all before getting involved in producing it. But I decided to go straight into producing performances. I was thinking of an analogy, and I came up with this because I'm a great lover of classical music, that I'm sure there are, first of all, I did, as an economist, many years of research, so I understand the importance of research. And I'm sure if you take any of the greatest composers, there are people who research them, people who study them and analyze them. But just imagine a world in which the music of Beethoven or the music of Mozart or Bach is not brought to the stage. I think it would be very much a poorer world. This is without diminishing the importance of researching composers like this. So I thought of this, even though I knew very little about Jewish music, I decided that this is what I wanted to do. It provided a springboard for my unbounded energy. And I started off, I still can't believe it myself. My first event was in January 2018, with zero experience producing any concerts and with very little knowledge of Jewish music. I produced a series of 7 concerts, no less, in the space of 2 weeks in Jerusalem. And it was very exciting, first of all. And it was more successful. This was going to be a test case for me. It was more successful than I thought it would be, not because of the quality of the artist, because right at the beginning, and again, I don't know how I came to all these decisions, I decided only to work with professional musicians. The quality of those 7 concerts was very high. I didn't know in advance what the volume of audience would come to them, but I was pleasantly surprised. And because of the success of that event, I decided to make it more formal and set up my non-profit organization. And the rest is history. I've done all these concerts. I suppose I'm looking for variety. What do I mean by multi-genre? I'm looking for variety. What I call the musical heritage of the Jewish people has a vast number of genres. It's full of variety, and there's no reason why we shouldn't bring this variety and show it to or play it or show it to the people. And this is what I'm trying to do. Let me just show you as an example, if I can do it correctly, put up the poster of my latest Hanukkah festival. Share screen. You see that, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. This was a festival that we did just a couple of months ago in Jerusalem. It's called Melodies and Miracles. I want to go quickly over the 6 concerts. This was all done in a week. All these concerts took place every single night of Hanukkah, obviously besides Friday nights. and there was one night that was missed out. We did 6 concerts, night after night, in Jerusalem. And I'll just go very quickly. The first one was Maureen Nehedal, whose specialty is piyutim of Persian origin. So that places her in the Middle East. Again, piyutim in the Middle East, in Egypt, Iraq, Syria, the Khaleb community, and Persia are fundamentally different from piyutim in the North African countries. So we started off with that, definitely a concert of Mizrahi music. We then switched to Broken Hallelujah. By the way, another thing that I decided right at the beginning without understanding how I came to this conclusion was that you need to provide a name for every concert, not only the name of the artist, but you have to provide a name to every concert. So the overall festival was called Melodies and Miracles because it took place on Hanukkah. But you will look at this post and you see that every concert has a name of its own, a title of its own. After piyutim from Persia, we switched to Leonard Cohen. This is a group, Broken Hallelujah, which specializes in the Jewish music of Leonard Cohen. Again, people might say, you know, why Leonard Cohen? How do you think of that as a genre of Jewish music? Well, it definitely is. By the way, since we have heard the video with the great Rabbi Sachs, I highly recommend another video which you can find on Google by putting in Jonathan Sachs and Leonard Cohen. He did an incredible obituary of Leonard Cohen after he passed away, explaining how his last song, which is called You Want It Darker, I'll Kill the Light, is based on the story of the binding of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. It's well worth listening to, and once you listen to it, you understand why we decided to put a concert of Leonard Cohen songs into a festival of Jewish music. We then switched to the third one, Halev Hamayan. It's a well-known group in Israel which does Hasidic music. We then had Gil Kopach. I won't say much about him except to say that he's a very well-known figure. He's a recent entry into the field of Jewish music, and he plays Jewish pop, Jewish rap, things you don't hear other artists in the field of Jewish music doing. Then we switched to the Israeli Latino Orchestra, again playing Latino Jewish music, and ending off with another concert of Mizrahi music, the Piyut Ensemble. But again, just as I explained, that the Piyutim of Maureen Hadar came from the Middle East, from Persia, so the Piyutim of the Piyut Ensemble come from North Africa, mostly from Morocco. Let me try and just put up one short clip. Let me take this off first of all.
Up to the top.
Oh, here, right. One second. Share sound, okay.
I'm ready, my lord. There's a lover in the story, but the story's still the same. There's a lullaby for suffering and a paradox to blame. But it's written in the scriptures, and it's not some idle claim. You want it darker, we kill the flame.
They're lining up the prisoners and the guards are taking aim.
I struggled with some demons, they were middle class and tame. I didn't know I had permission to murder and to maim. You want it darker. I'm ready, my lord.
Okay, I'm going to stop the share and just 1 second. How do I get rid of this? Oh, no.
Minimize.
Let me just show you one more.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Right, this is the Piot Ensemble, the specializing Piotim from the really fascinating group. Just before I start playing it, there are 17 musicians aged from 25 to 82. They've been performing for many, many years, and it's such a colorful group. I'll just play a little bit of this one. Oops. I don't know. What do oh, shit. Made a mistake. Sorry.
Don't say no shit.
One second. One second.
You pressed the next one instead of the same one. So you need to go back if you can.
1 second.
If you've got
there's an arrow just at the top
right,
left to go backwards.
The top
right at the end. Go right to the end. There's an arrow which there. I don't know if you can't see mine. No, the other side. Right at the end under the sorry.
Oh, Jeffrey, you're muted now.
Unmute. Right.
Just go on talking without it.
Right. I'm very inexpert at this. Right.
No, don't press there. Don't press there. That's the wrong button. You have to press.
What?
You're pressing go to the next one instead of pressing play.
Oh.
So if you just take, like, if you go on your top row, right to the left, you see a little arrow. Can you see a little arrow on the left?
Left.
Right.
Left. Right, yeah.
Yes, press that arrow.
Mucha chica, no te apares al mar, que el mar está fortuna, no te va a gastar, que
Now done it. Right. Okay. Oh dear. I never get.
Just close it if you don't want to.
Damn it. I don't know how to pause it. Damn it.
Just close it.
Right.
Exit at the top.
No, damn it. Oh.
Exit.
No, don't, damn it. Oh shit.
Stop
I
it.
can't.
What do you want?
Shall we mute you until you sort it?
Right. Okay. I need to get rid of this. No. And how do you get rid of this?
You can just close YouTube because you've stopped sharing and we can see you.
Right.
So everything's good. And the music is wonderful. And tell us about the audiences.
Talk.
The audiences, why? How? Hello, I can hear you. Sorry. The audiences, what can I say about the audiences? We obviously, everyone who produces concerts or shows, the test is the side of audience. So we have had much better performances and less good performances. It's something that we're still working at. We're still trying to establish our relationship. As I say, we've been around for relatively little time, but we're working on it continually. And what I'd like to say is, Geraldine, can we talk about future events, or we're not up to that yet? Or you want to go back on first of all before we talk about future events?
Oh, well, carry on, Jeffrey. I can do it after.
Okay.
While you're
again,
in good flow.
What?
While you're in good flow.
Right.
Carry on.
Okay. There are several things that are on the drawing boards for 22 and 23. Again, showing this variety of Jewish music which we were trying to achieve. One is an event that we had planned to do in early 2020, but we had to postpone because of Corona. We're hoping to perhaps do it this year. It's called Hazanot from East to West. There are people who know only certain sections of the spectrum of Hazanot. It's not called Hazanot in the Eastern countries, it's called Paitanot. But we planned a concert with literally different styles of Hazanot from East to West, and we're hoping to do that this year. The other thing, possibly the main thing, and this relates to what Geraldine showed, the concept of suppressed music. This is a major event with international involvement called Into the Light, celebrating the lost music, the rediscovery of the lost music of the Holocaust, or not of the Holocaust, or the Nazi period. I met up with some people also on the forum, and we have set up a team of international experts from all around the world. And we are planning to bring this music to the stage. If you look at what's been happening, the rediscovery process has been continuing for the last 30 plus years, and there are archives all over the place in the States, in Britain as well, and in various European countries. And some of this music has been recorded, but relatively little has been brought to the stage. And this is what we plan to do in this project called Into the Light. And we're hoping that we will be able to do. We have a program that we have Agnes on screen. Agnes is also involved in this from the point of view of the Hungarian composers who didn't survive the Holocaust, but left a lot of music behind them. But this is just a small amount of music that we have available. We have a huge, we applied to our team of experts and asked them to suggest repertoire items. And the music that we have accumulated at the moment on an Excel spreadsheet is possibly enough for 10 years of musical activity. But first of all, we want to start doing this in 2022. It depends on a lot of things. I can't say now that the opening concert will be on a certain date. We're hoping it'll be in June, but I can't promise that for all kinds of reasons. And we plan this as an ongoing project. If it succeeds in 2022, to continue in the years afterwards. It's a very important subject and a very big subject and a very ambitious project. So those are two of the items that we're looking at on our drawing board and hoping to make happen. At the beginning, before people came on screen, I talked to the people who were on screen, including Alex Klein, about an attempt to do a regular Chazanut concert, but with a twist and a different kind of way. These are the things we have on the drawing board. The question that Jerry suggested we talk about, what has been your most joyous experience? Well, the way I answer that question is that just to be a producer and have something you produced come on stage is a joyous experience. And I still remember the experience that I had when I did my first concert back in January 2018. And I have to say that this feeling of pleasure when you see a production that you've done actually take place has not waned at all over the last 4 years. Right, that's what I want to say for the moment. Thank you all for listening.
Jeffrey, it's quite extraordinary and to me a miracle that you've decided to do this. You know, we've always felt sorry that whenever Israeli orchestras come to travel, they never bring Israeli music, they never bring Jewish music. So the fact that you are doing Jewish music festivals in Israel is a real mitzvah to the world. And you're really to be so congratulated and encouraged because you're doing something fantastic. And of course, Israel, with its polyglot of so many different varieties of Jewish cultures, has got so much music, and you're doing a great service to everybody by presenting it on stage and letting people hear it. So it's really good. Does anybody want to perhaps ask some questions or make some suggestions to Jeffrey, and then I can come back and tell you my glories. But if you want to say something, Malcolm Miller, are you there? Are you saying?
Alex, you raised your hand, Alex. Yes. Right. Ask away.
Kol hakavod to you. We've talked many times, and your ambitions and your ideas outside what we call the norm is actually the norm, but people don't understand it because they haven't been accustomed to it. There's so many genres, as you say, of connections to Jewish music, and Geraldine did the same thing with the B'nai B'rith Music Festival and JMI, because these should be part and parcel of Jewish music and Jewish concerts. They're what we call hidden gems, that the unfortunate thing is that our people of today have no idea the amount of beautiful music compositions, second to none, as good as Beethoven, Bach, Sibelius, etc., etc. We have wonderful music, whether it's folk, whether it's classical, and what you're doing to bring this to a most difficult audience in Israel, especially the melting pot of Jerusalem, where there's so many different factions of Yiddishkeit and religious people. So how do you manage to get this melting pot together to embrace what you're doing? Because it's a political nightmare, as I found it, and how do you manage it? What is your secret, Jeffrey?
Well, I don't know if I have any secrets, and I don't know how successful I've been up to now as far as spreading the word as widely as possible. It's not only because of the politics. There's a certain degree of reticence, certainly about listening to music that's connected with the Nazi period. We talked about this beforehand. I have this belief that the Jewish people can learn to appreciate Jewish music much more. And these events that I do, I've actually witnessed people. Basically what I'm saying to them here, I'm offering you a series of concerts, 6 concerts of different genres. Even if you are acquainted with a particular type of music, why don't you taste others? And I've seen in the events that I've done, the people, not the people that I know necessarily, have gone to more than one concert, have tasted. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of getting used to it. But you have to, I go back to put my economist hat back on and say, supply creates its own demand. In other words, if you supply the goods, there is a chance that you will create the demand. So I'm supplying the variety, or trying to supply the variety of Jewish music in its different genres, and hoping that the demand will pick up. It's not an easy thing. It's a hard sell, but I don't want to give up. And Geraldine and I promised that we wouldn't mention the question of money, so we're not going to talk about the question of money.
Do you get help from the municipality of Jerusalem? Do you get help from the?
Yes, a certain amount. I mean, I can tell you from the Jerusalem municipality has a department called the Department for the Heritage of the Jewish People. The heritage of the Jewish people in a general sense obviously includes music. And they have helped me in the past, not to any great extent. I mean, one of the problems, not problems in inverted commas, of working with professional artists who are not necessarily very highly paid, but highly paid, means you have to work hard to raising funds. Again, I don't want to get into the subject of fundraising because it's not relevant for what we're doing. So, I mean, my approach is to widen the musical experience of the Jewish people, firstly in Israel, and then we'll see what happens. I'm hoping to plug on with this in the hope that I will succeed.
Well, you're very, very welcome to use our platform, to publicize and to do everything, and we will do everything we can to help you succeed.
No, I know that certainly the JMI with Jennifer Jankel, who I know well, has been publicizing our events in the hope that if anybody from England, not in the Corona period, is visiting Israel at the time we're putting on an event, will come and listen to us. So we're doing our best. We're trying very hard. I've learned the ropes, I think, fairly quickly about how to do this in the proper fashion, but there's still a long way to go.
Thank you so much for what you do, and kol hakavod.
Thanks, Alex and Jeffrey. Agnes, would you like to unmute and?
Okay, am I unmuted now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hi, Jeffrey. Well, I know that you're working extremely hard, because from our correspondence and communication, I know you're working amazingly hard. And I also know that there are some people who support it, like Ron Lutzig and Swat. But I just wonder, do you come across sort of hostility from people who say, oh, we are in Israel, we don't need we are in a Jewish country, we don't need any more Jewish music. So is there any hostility? I know that some people are just a bit faded about it, and you mentioned that, but have you come across any hostility about your amazing plans?
No, I don't think so. I don't feel any hostility. But certainly, Alex, since he used the word politics, there are some political elements you have to cope with. Just to give you an example, my first event, which I said I did as a complete novice in January 2018, it was actually, I had this idea, which I've since kind of abandoned, about doing concerts of Jewish music inside synagogues. I thought, what could be more atmospheric than to put a group, an ensemble, playing Jewish music, not synagogue music, but Jewish music, and sitting in a synagogue. And I still remember going to the municipality, again as a complete novice, and showing them the program that I put together. They fell in love with it until they saw some of the synagogues that I intended to put concerts on were not Orthodox synagogues. And they said to me, the council of the Jerusalem municipality, because it has many ultra-Orthodox people on it, will never allow the municipality to support a series of concerts, some of which are in non-Orthodox synagogues. So I thumbed my nose at the municipality and managed to find funds on my own, and I did the concerts in. So these things you have to deal with, as I explained right at the beginning. Politics is everywhere in Israel. You can't get away from it. And actual hostility, no, on the contrary, I get a lot of encouragement to keep going. So no hostility whatsoever. I'm happy to say.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful. Malcolm Miller, do you want to unmute and ask your question? And then Isabel, I'd like you to say something. Are you still there, Malcolm? Malcolm, are you there? And Isabel, are you there? Yeah, Isabel, you unmute him. Yeah.
Did you want me to say what I put into the chat?
Yes.
Okay. I had a Fulbright to Jerusalem in 1997. I had a talk with the head of the Jerusalem Symphony, and he told me how difficult it was to get people to concerts because, you know, 1/3 of the population was Arabic and they didn't go to Western style concerts. 1/3 was Orthodox and they didn't go out to concerts. So they were all fighting for that remaining third of the population.
What can I say? The statistics you presented, I suppose, are correct. But I mean, one of the things that I've learned as a producer is that the way you market things, the way that the PR that you do is extremely important about how to sell anything. And that's true of any product. And I work in the events that I do with professional PR companies in the hope that they will focus sufficiently well on what we're doing in order to attract the public. I mean, as I say, everybody who works as a producer of musical events knows that the test is to get audiences to come in, and everybody, not only in the field of Jewish music, in every sphere of music. Speak to people who put on classical music and they'll tell you how difficult it is to get young people. We all have the same aims. We all have the same targets, and we all hope that we're doing the right thing in order to make these things happen. But it's a long-term process. It certainly doesn't happen immediately. But overall, I've been encouraged by the audiences at the concerts that we've done, and I hope that it gets better and better. That's the only thing I can say. You have to remain optimistic. If you're not optimistic, then you might as well not start in the first place.
I'm sure it will, because you're pricking bubbles and bursting bubbles, and you're breaking ceilings, and you're making headway each time you do something. Rachel.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you, do you focus more, are you focusing exclusively on bringing established artists, or would the spectacular world of Jewish music at some point end up commissioning new music that is being a support for Israeli composers?
Not really. I work with ready-made artists. I can't guarantee that all the decisions I made at the beginning or continue to make up to now are the right decisions. I decided to work with professional musicians, again, not the highest paid musicians, but I decided not to be a vehicle for starting the career of starting musicians. I mean, that's the decision I made. Whether I'll change it in the future or how long are going to continue with this, I don't know. But that's I'm certainly not at the stage of commissioning works. I work with artists who know the music they play. I generally, the truth is, I'm not a musician or a musicologist, and I would say that in our organization, the Spectacular World of Jewish Music, we can well do with a musical director. At the moment, I act as my own musical director, But when I ask an artist or a group of artists or an ensemble to play, it's mostly because they play the genre of Jewish music that I would like to show at this concert. But as far as the content of what they play, it's entirely up to them. I don't get involved in program planning. I mean, for that, I would need a musical director, which we don't have. Whether we will ever get to a stage, I do not know. But for the moment, again, with this, going back to this, the Into the Light project, so music, the suppressed music of the Nazi era, there, of course, we have a big team of experts. So I don't need to offer any of my totally lacking musical knowledge or musicology knowledge. I have people around me or working with me. That's what they do. We have a musical director for this particular project, but I'm talking about my organization. What I do is I plan my own, or we plan our own concerts without the help of anybody with particularly highly developed musical knowledge.
Thank you.
That's one. You're doing a fantastic job. You know, as you say, the musicians know how to deal with the music. It's the you person they need, somebody to organize the concerts, to give them a platform. And that's what you're doing, and you're doing it so well. Alex, I'll come to you in a minute. I just wanted to say something. When I started, what was really helpful was that I started through an organization. It was B'nai B'rith that wanted to do this. And they had several lodges in those days all over London. And because there was the organization, one could draw on their support so that the whole movement supported this. And each lodge, not all of them, but some of them would agree to look after a concert. In other words, to sell the tickets, to get a little bit of sponsorship, to feed the artists. You know, they had some ownership of it. And it was really helpful. So I just wonder whether there's an organization who supports you, who'd like to do it, that you can bring along to help with the nitty-gritty of doing it once you've decided what you're going to do.
Well, since you mentioned the B'nai B'rith, the B'nai B'rith in Israel and Jerusalem has helped to a certain extent, not in organizing, but in providing financial support. But there isn't really an organization that I can think of, at least, or no one's told me of an organization that could be approached, which would fill a similar role to the role that B'nai B'rith filled when you began your career. Again, any suggestions are welcome. I haven't found such an organization yet.
I approached World Mizrachi, and they seem to be quite interested in music, because Andrew Shaw, who runs Mizrachi UK, is into storytelling through music, the story of Israel, the story of, and he uses Johnny Turgle and other musicians. So when I approached Mizrachi, they were quite positive in the musical, and the Rabbonim who are headquartered in Jerusalem are approachable and might, again, that genre of Israeli music or the political thing or the birth of Israel or another part of Jewish music, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Russian, you know, the immigration, etc., might be something that you can work as a project with them. It's a suggestion, but I know they are open, and I'm just wondering whether that is a possibility. The other point I wanted to make is you took your concerts out of the synagogue and put them into the first station, you know, the concerts that you did concerts there. Did it make a difference to the audience coming, and you got audiences that would not have come to a synagogue but would have come to a hall, a concert place or a venue? So by doing that, it made a difference to you?
It's very difficult for me to judge on the basis of this last event that we did, but the reason why I said before that I'm moving away from the idea of doing concerts in synagogues, even though it's extremely atmospheric, there are two technical reasons. First of all, we do the concerts in the space of the shul, so there's a bima in the middle, and that's a real problem because it hides the view of many people. There's all the acoustics are not always terribly good in a synagogue because it's not made. But the most important thing, which is what you refer to, Alex, is that when a non-Orthodox person sees a concert in a synagogue, even though the artist may be artists that he or she likes, just the idea of going to a synagogue, I felt that I was kind of shooting myself in the foot. But I don't have enough subsequent evidence based on the last series of concerts we did in a theater, not in a shul, about whether, obviously, in general, it seems to me more sensible to go for a non-shul for the reason I gave, but I don't yet have enough experience, or enough, not experience, but enough proof that I should stay away from synagogues in the future. Again,
Well, if you choose the format or the subject of the concert, that should be able to tell you to do it either in a synagogue or not do it in a synagogue. If you're doing a choral Mariv for the Sephira, then it works in a synagogue. Right. If you're doing something else with an ensemble which is mixed, men and women and boys and girls and so on and so forth, that might work better in a hall. But what you've achieved in the short time that you've done is absolutely tremendous, especially being in what I call a hostile political environment, especially in Jerusalem. But I take my hat off to you and everything, because the lessons, like Geraldine pioneered certain things, because I know I put on Kurt Weill in Manchester with Alex Knapp at the Abraham Moss Centre, which was a non-Jewish library, in their theatre. And Alex should remember that because he's listening, but it was something. But we had about 6 or 7 lodges in Manchester for B'nai B'rith. But you start somewhere and it grows and you get a reputation, and you're getting a reputation because people are listening to what you're doing. You're taking something outside the box and putting it back into the box where it should be. That's the way I look at it, and I thank you for it. And absolutely fantastic. And when I'm next in Israel, please God, I will come to one of your concerts at least.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Carry on, Jeffrey.
Was that? No, there's. I am fairly satisfied with the progress I've made. I think that I have put the name of our organization on the map. People know of us. We have been getting support, but there's still a way to go. There's still a way to go. But I think that the general direction is correct. I believe, rather than think, that there is interest on the part of the people here to increase or enhance their knowledge and experience of Jewish music, and I'm trying to make it possible for them to do so, basically.
I think you're doing a splendid job, and as you say, Jewish music is so huge, and everybody today is bringing a new slant to it, and a new emphasis, and a new ensemble that, once you get people with the taste for it, hopefully they will continue to come and hear that. One of the questions that Malcolm Miller wrote was, if you do East-West Chazanut, which sounds a great idea, would you consider doing the same liturgical texts sung in different traditions, which could highlight diversity in approaches?
I hadn't thought of doing that. As I say, this program was ready to go in March 2020 when Corona hit the world, and so it was put off. Basically, I can just I tell you very briefly, there were 6 concerts. One was from what I call the Paitanut from the Middle East, which includes Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and Persia. There was going to be a separate concert on Paitanot from Yemen, from Tayman, just a very interesting subject in itself. Another one on North Africa, Tunisia, and Morocco. And then moving west, we were going to have a separate concert on Italian Chazanot, a separate concert on Spanish, Portuguese Chazanot, and the final one, of course, on Ashkenazi Chazanot. And this program is still ready to go.
You know, Jeffrey, what's come to my mind listening to you, this is a little radio program before your festival starts, with all of these groups singing something on a half-hour radio program. Do you know a radio producer who might be interested in that sort of thing?
There are stations that I could approach. Again, we need, I can tell you that one of the events we did way back in 2018, we had very good PR people working, and they managed to get one of the 6 concerts of that event broadcast live on one of these radio stations. It's just a matter of finding the right people to do it. You know, I don't do my own PR, so I don't have time and I don't have the ability. But there are lots of radio stations. As far as the idea of having the same piece sung in different styles, I mean, there was, some of you may have heard, they did the famous Yigdal, I mean, in 16 different styles of singing, which was really interesting. It's a possibility, but at the moment, this particular project is planned that every group does its own music.
I think that the project is perfect, but if you could do a radio show with a sample of each, you will make the whole thing much more popular, if that's at all possible, you see. And then people will come to all the concerts. And, you know, you could, if you find the right producer, here is another wonderful thing for a radio program, is the text. And you get different people to talk about and sing it the way they do it in their tradition. And so you get more and more people interested in Jewish music and in the concerts that you're doing.
Okay, there's something we have to look at.
Good idea.
My little thoughts.
Right, okay. Every little thought is important.
Absolutely. So I'll just come back and show you a couple of things that were especially meaningful to me. But I would want to say that some of the most meaningful things to me in making this music festival was getting to know the people who make Jewish music and who know about it. And that includes Alex Klein. That's when we first got to meet each other. Alex was already putting on concerts with other musicians. He's always been bringing musicians and putting them on the stage. So he's got very good experience in how to do it and how to publicize it. And of course, getting to know Alex Knapp, who was my mainstay because I knew nothing about Jewish music to start with. And, you know, gradually I learned a lot. And we were really happy to have Isabel with us one year with Alhambra. We did a beautiful concert. So, you know, it's really interesting to have you all here and look back and see what one has done, but certainly interesting to look forward to what Jeffrey's doing and Alex and what other people will hopefully also take up the baton and continue to do what you're doing. So one of the things that we did in 2006, this was the year that we celebrated the 350th anniversary of Jews coming back to Britain. With Oliver Cromwell didn't say welcome them back, but he said, okay, you can make shuls and you can be here. So there we are. Now here we worked really hard with the Mayor of London. You know, there were some people in the hierarchy of British authority who said, how can you work with the mayor of London? He's this and he's that. I said, I live in the greatest city in the world, and I'm dealing with the office of the mayor of the greatest city in the world. It doesn't matter who the incumbent is. This is London reaching out to us and saying, we want Jewish culture in the middle of our city. And we're prepared to give you the infrastructure costing us £60,000. You know, what have the Board of Deputies given me? You know, not sixpence. So we put on this magnificent stage. Can you see at the top, it says Simcha on the Square, and this is Trafalgar Square. And the reason we've got that magnificent stage was that the previous evening, the Scissor Sisters, who were a very popular group, did a concert there. So we just managed to put a new banner up that said Simcha on the Square, and we had this magnificent stage in front of the Royal, the National Gallery at the top of Trafalgar Square. And there you can see the crowds who came, and there were people who just strolled in, who'd never heard Jewish music, people who had come from different places, tourists who were Jews, people who stumbled on it. They said we had about 25,000 people there during the afternoon. I'm not sure if that's correct, but you can see that it looks pretty full. People were dancing, people were singing, they were clapping. We had young performers, we had klezmer, we had a cantorial choir, we had the London Jewish Male Choir, we had the youth choir, we had klezmer bands. We had a whole afternoon from 1 o'clock till 7 o'clock in Trafalgar Square. And, you know, that was perhaps one of the pinnacles of how things developed and how we managed to do it. And we did it again the next couple of years. And then the hierarchy changed, and we went back rather to doing klezmer in the park, because klezmer in the park, as you could see, was very comfortable for the community. We had lots of people, you know, people would bring their children and their grandchildren and sit on the grass and enjoy themselves. And so, you know, we then went back to doing klezmer in the park, and you can see families dancing in the park. And then one of the things we did was an event in Clifford's Tower in York. This was a whole interfaith long weekend where Jews had either committed suicide or been massacred in York in 1190. And so we did it, must have been in 1990, not 1980, to commemorate 800 years of that massacre. And that involved the Zemel Choir in York, not only singing for services in the synagogues, and people came out, you know, Quakers and nuns and priests and the canons from York Minster coming out saying, but even the words are the same, you know, which I think we did a lot for interfaith in those days. And we did a couple of really big concerts in York Minster, including Bloch Sacred Service. And the final thing, we did Bloch Sacred Service again at St. Paul's Cathedral. And this was with Yehudi Menuhin conducting. Yehudi had first heard Bloch Sacred Service from Bloch when he was a teenager in San Francisco, standing at the piano, Bloch beating it out, and as he said, barking it out to him. And he always wanted to do it. He wanted to do it with the Polish orchestra, which he was conducting. But in fact, we said to him, we're not doing it with orchestra, we're doing it with the organ of St. Paul's Cathedral. And he eventually agreed. And Malcolm Singer, who's been part of our cause, was the director of music of the Zemel Choir and of the Yehudi Menyon School. So he trained the choirs, and Yehudi came and conducted it on the night. And as you can see, we had a rather special visitor who was Prince Philip, and we had Sir Sigmund Sternberg, another huge patron of Council of Christians and Jews, and getting Jews and Muslims and Christians and Hindus, everybody together in greater understanding. So that was a very special event. And I got somebody to light the hall, because I'd been to a concert at St. Paul's and it was horrible. It was just these sort of concrete walls. And I said, I really want to light it. It's got to have some lighting. And they said, oh no, only the Beatles have lighting like that, and you can't afford it and you can't do it. So I kind of put it aside, and then I'd applied to a volunteer organization for a stage manager to help me with all the choirs and the things. And then I said, well, you better give me your CV so I know what you do. So he said, I'm a theatrical lighting expert. I said, forget about the stage management, light St. Paul's for me. And he made it absolutely magical. If you can imagine where the choir are sitting, they were sitting on these plastic chairs, in tiered chairs. But when he had the lights on it, one corner shone blue and another corner shone pink and another one was an orange. It was magical as you came in. And the choirs were not there. You just saw this fairy lighting, and he lit the vaults with this beautiful mosaics. And then we started with the children of the St. Paul's Choir singing At the West Door. And it was just so magical. And then, they slowly came up and the choirs came in, and it was a really special occasion. Interestingly enough, you talk about problems with doing concerts in synagogues. There were people who shook their fingers and said, how can you do a concert in a cathedral? One person shook his finger and 2,000 people bought tickets. So, you just have to do what you think is the right thing to do, and people will follow. So I hope that gives you a great deal of encouragement, Jeffrey, for all the things that you're doing.
Yes. I'm still encouraged. And we'll see what happens. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for allowing me to tell you what we've been doing and what we intend to do. And I look forward to taking part in other cause talks with other people and learning more. I still have a lot to learn about Jewish music. I consider myself a novice. I jumped into the deep pool of producing, but there's still a lot that I have to learn, and I hope I will expand my knowledge as well.
You certainly will, and we've expanded our knowledge listening to you about the wonderful groups that you've got in Israel, and we really think that you're on the right track. You're doing brilliant things, and it's terrific. So thank you, Jeffrey, for coming on and for having me with you, and we've been able to talk about our experiences of putting Jewish music on the stage. And it's worthwhileness. I had I think a slide about what the impact was. So what I think the impact has been is that it's brought Jewish music to the mainstream of British academic and cultural life. And, this is where you will go as well, Jeffrey. Jewish music came of age and has taken its place amongst other arts of this country. We've created many ensembles that didn't exist before. and they're playing Jewish music in their own spheres. There's now a lectureship in Jewish music at a mainstream university, the first in the world, which was first established at City University in 1991 with our very own Alex Knapp as the lecturer, the Joe Loss Lecturer in Jewish Music, and it's now been at SOAS since 1999. And the whole Jewish Music Institute that's been established was established on the shoulders of doing these concerts on the stage in London. Once we got to the university, we've been able to present international conferences, taking Jewish music into an arena where there is real interest. You know, as I said at the beginning, Jewish people can take it or leave it, but other people find Jewish music ancient and yet contemporary. It's extraordinary, and they're really interested, and there's a lot of research going on in Jewish music. And that's the last thing that we're doing, is bringing you all together in this international forum for Jewish music studies, connecting scholars from all around the world. So there is plenty of, the good things that come out of doing this. And, I feel very satisfied that things are carrying on. And when I see Jeffrey doing what you're doing, and Jennifer Jankel doing what she's doing, Ilana Kravitz doing what she's doing, all the other people, I feel, well, we've made something happen, and it's continuing to reverberate. So very good for all of you. So Alex, what would you like to tell us now about tomorrow and about the future, and then perhaps Laurie.
Well, you missed something out, Geraldine. You missed something very important. The first Jewish conference was held at Leeds University, magnified and sanctified, and through that has come COS. Through that has come the conference in Hanover, which came when we were there, and also the future of our next conference, which I think 2023, which is geared to it, COVID hopefully. And these are things that would never have happened, but you take the plunge, you find a connection, and people say you won't be able to succeed and you can't do it, and you succeed. I mean, I just put on here, this was something, Jan Pearce, famous opera star, 1971. I actually knocked on the stage door at the Metropolitan Opera, said, "Can I speak to Jan Pearce?" The commissionaire said, "Is he expecting you?" I said, "No, would you just tell him I'm here from England?" He actually, out of curiosity, he was taking off his makeup and said he would see me. He saw me for 5 minutes. And then he said, "Would you come? I've got English tea. Would you come and meet Alice tomorrow? Where are you staying?" And I was staying in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. And he said, "I'll pick a limousine to pick you up and bring you to our apartment in Manhattan. What's it all about?" So I told him I'd love him to do a concert in Manchester at the Free Trade Hall, as it was, with the Halle Orchestra, and singing chazonas in Yiddish, as well as opera. He said, I haven't sung chazonas for ages. I do it at Pesach time or the Jewish New Year when I go to Florida or to the mountains, and I'm invited." But he came and he insisted, as Jan Pearce said, kosher food, need a piano, and need someone to vocalize. So my in-laws have a grand piano, a baby grand, and they wanted someone quiet. So we took him there, and he sang and he vocalized. And this was the start of my concerts over 50 years ago in Manchester. But I'm still learning and I'm still doing, and it's growing and growing and growing. And if you've got a team with you, no matter how big or how small, that are enthusiastic and all specialize in different things, it comes together. And my team go mad at me and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, it will never happen. And I said, it will. And, you know, when it said Prague twice and Hanover and Budapest and Leeds and various other places, you can't do it, it won't happen, people won't buy into it. And from a learning curve, you learn and then you expand and try something new, and then you try something new and you try something new. So every convention, conference or something that's built up started in a small way. And then I introduced Shabbat of Chazanut, which wasn't apparent. Then I introduced open mic sessions. Then I introduced gala concerts. Then I introduced master classes and so on and so forth. And now it's, please God, Budapest is something we've got to look forward to. And tomorrow, even sooner, when I'll be talking to Gideon Zellermeyer. And you mentioned Leonard Cohen, and Gideon Zellermeyer was collaborated on Leonard Cohen's last recording and appears on that with his choir. So we're going to talk about that. And there's something, how he came about to be a chazan in Shar Shemayim in Canada. And this will be the last in the series, of series 2. And then, please God, we'll in a few months' time, we will start series 3. And we can talk to different people about it. It's about, I think I want to do about education and about the different aspects of what it takes to become a professional chazan or cantor. And if 3, 4, 5 years of studying, which they do, is so important, I believe passionately that there should be jobs available for them. If Samicha course makes rabbis jobs available, then the 7-day-a-week chazan who've studied very, very hard should have jobs available. And that's my next mission. Maybe it's mission impossible, but I don't think so. With God's help and your help and everybody else behind me, we will succeed.
Alex, I'm sure you will, because there's no end to your ingenuity, your passion, your interest, your care, and your compassion for everybody. And I'm sure, you know, it will happen. You mentioned the first conference on Jewish prayer. We called it in Leeds, we called it Magnified and Sanctified. You know,
yeah.
And we've done another one since then. But I just wanted to mention that Alex Knapp had Jewish music conferences, the first one in City University in 1994 and another one in 97, which was in general about Jewish music. And then, you know, it's all going forward, and there are many more scholars, there are many more university chairs and lectureships and fellowships. There's a lot of scholarship going on, a lot of concerts going on. So, you know, it all adds up. It all adds up. So thank you very much.
Agnes just put something in the chat, says Israel is very different and surely more difficult than organizing in and from the UK. I don't think it's true in one way, but it isn't, because of again, the same thing, the orthodoxy and the factions right across the board. To be independent is the most important thing. If there's any lesson to learn, Jeffrey, no politics, no putting yourself involved with one branch of Judaism. Be independent, be non-political, and you know, you're your own master, because I think that's the most important thing. You know, every Jewish side of music should be, as you say, should be shown, should be played in public, and people should have the opportunity of listening to our wonderful wealth of music from all over, all spectrums of the Jewish world and all spectrums of Jewish life.
Thank
Can
you.
I come back? Can I come back on this, please?
Yes, go on.
Okay. Well, look, Geraldine made the point that that she and her organization took all these topics, Jewish music and all that, outside to non-Jewish people. So it's been spreading in the UK. But there are not all that many non-Jewish people in Israel. So, you can't compare trying to organize things in the UK and organize things in Israel. I think that it's horrendously difficult in Israel. They have lots of other problems apart from music. And so it's all very well to encourage Jeffrey, and I'm very grateful to Jeffrey for all the hard work he puts in. But we need to acknowledge that what Geraldine was doing all these years ago and even now, and what Alex was doing all these years ago and even now, it's not the same as trying to do it from Israel. I mean, anyway, I'm sorry. I was just getting a bit frustrated about this. And thank you for allowing me to say this. And now I really have to go.
Thank you. God bless you, Agnes.
It's a wonderful moment now to end our session. Perhaps, Laurie, I don't know whether you've got in front of you what's going on next week on COS.
I don't. I was looking for it. Unfortunately, I don't.
Has anybody got a memory? I can look on the website quickly, but there will be a wonderful session next week.
Yeah,
so
I can tell you that it'll be a wonderful session because it is Malcolm speaking. It's the first of two sessions about the wonderful Israeli composer Joseph Tal with some expert speakers, including Professor Hirschberg from the Hebrew University and Michael Volpe, who is director of the Jerusalem Academy. So that's what's on the menu for next week.
That's wonderful. I want to just remind people, do you remember, Malcolm, we had a session in one of our festivals about what is Jewish music? Can you define it? And we had Michael Haas, who was from the suppressed music. We had Joseph Tull, this composer. We had cantors. We had Alex Knapp, the scholars. We had so many people. Alex was chairing this. And eventually we went round and round, and Joseph Tull said, stop trying to define it, just play it. Everything is Jewish music. Yeah.
Can I just say, I'm one of in your opening statement, Geraldine, you used the word intention, and I remember when I started out in my career, I also thought I would draw up a definition of my own, knowing that the world has still not reached a definition that is acceptable to everybody. And I came to the conclusion that the intent, in other words, if you write a piece of music and you intend it to be Jewish music, then it's Jewish music. And there's the well-known word, what is intention in Hebrew? It's kavanah. And if you say with a Yiddish intonation, it's kavona. They use that if you pray with kavanah. So I came to the conclusion, and no one's dissuaded me that this is not important, that if you intend your music that you compose to be Jewish music, then it's Jewish music. I think that's important.
Yeah.
For COS, Geraldine, I've just got an email from Max Stern, who's agreed to give me 1 or 2 dates in May. So either the 10th or the 24th of May, Max Stern will be on COS.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Laurie, for holding the session together and for being with us. Thank you, everybody who's come to listen to us. We've been really honored that you've come to spend the time with us, and thank you so much. So thank you, and see you next week with Malcolm and his troupe doing the music of Joseph Tull.
Good night, everybody. Good night.